The truck was a 1978 Ford F-150. It was a faded, matte sky blue, with patches of rust around the wheel wells that looked like bruised skin. The engine growled with a guttural, unrefined roar that shook the manicured hydrangeas of Oak Haven Estates whenever it turned over. To Lucas Gage, that truck was a time machine. It smelled of motor oil, old leather, and his father's unfiltered cigarettes. It was the truck he had learned to drive in. It was the truck that had carried his father's coffin to the cemetery 3 months ago. To Patricia Vance, the truck was a hate crime against property values. Patricia stood at the window of her McMansion, a sprawling structure of stucco and faux stone that looked like it had been 3D printed by a committee of real estate agents. She held a cup of chamomile tea, her eyes narrowed behind designer frames. "He's washing it again," she murmured into her phone. "Who, Patricia?" asked Cheryl, the HOA vice president, on the other end of the line. "The Savage, in 402. He's washing that thing in the driveway, with a garden hose, like we're in a trailer park." Lucas Gage was, in fact, washing the truck. He was wearing a stained t-shirt and cargo shorts. He was 38, with scruffy facial hair and the kind of deep tan that suggested he worked outdoors. He didn't look like he belonged in Oak Haven. Oak Haven was a gated community in the hills outside of Austin, Texas. It was the kind of place where doctors, lawyers, and mid-level tech executives moved to prove they had made it. The driveways were filled with white Teslas, black Range Rovers, and silver BMWs. Lucas hummed as he scrubbed the chrome bumper. He had moved here 2 weeks ago. He bought the house in cash, sight unseen, mostly because it had a massive 6-car garage in the back where he could work on his vintage motorcycles. He wanted quiet. He wanted to grieve his dad in peace. He didn't know he had moved into a war zone. A shadow fell across the driveway. Lucas looked up, shielding his eyes from the Texas sun. Patricia Vance stood at the edge of his property line. She never crossed it. She knew the laws of trespassing, but she hovered right at the precipice. She was holding a clipboard. "Good morning," Lucas said, smiling. He was a naturally friendly man. "Beautiful day, right?" Patricia didn't smile. She looked at the truck, then at Lucas, then back at the truck. "Mr. Gage," she said. Her voice was crisp, like dry autumn leaves. "We need to talk about the vehicle." "The Ford?" Lucas patted the hood affectionately. "Yeah, she's a beauty. Needs a little work on the carburetor, but she runs strong." "It is an eyesore," Patricia said, "and it is in violation of the Oak Haven covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Section 4, paragraph C." Lucas blinked. "Section what now?" "The CC&Rs, Patricia tapped her clipboard. "You signed them when you bought the house. No commercial vehicles, recreational vehicles, or vehicles in a state of visible disrepair shall be parked in driveways for longer than 24 hours. Lucas laughed. "Commercial? This isn't a work truck. It's a classic. And disrepair? It drives fine." "It has rust," Patricia pointed a manicured finger. "Rust is disrepair. It degrades the visual integrity of the street. My house is directly across from yours, Mr. Gage. When I look out my window, I expect to see order. I do not expect to see a scrapyard." Lucas's smile faded. "Look, ma'am. Patricia, Mrs. Vance, president of the Homeowners Association. Mrs. Vance, this truck belonged to my dad. He passed recently. I'm fixing it up in his memory. It's not going anywhere." Patricia's eyes went cold. She adjusted her glasses. "This is Oak Haven, Mr. Gage. We don't care about your memories. We care about our equity. Move the truck into the garage by 5 p.m. or you will be fined." She turned on her heel and walked away. Lucas watched her go. He looked at his dad's truck. "Welcome to the neighborhood," he muttered. Lucas did not move the truck. His garage was currently full of boxes he hadn't unpacked and 2 disassembled Ducati motorcycles. The truck stayed in the driveway. The next morning, Lucas found an envelope taped to his front door. It was heavy, cream-colored stationery with the Oak Haven crest, an oak tree that didn't actually exist in the neighborhood, embossed in gold. Violation notice. Offense: unauthorized vehicle, visible rust. Fine: $250. Remedy: remove vehicle immediately. Lucas took the letter into his kitchen. He tossed it on the counter next to his espresso machine. He wasn't poor. Far from it. Lucas Gage was the co-founder of NebulaStream, a back-end logistics software that Amazon and FedEx used to route packages. He had sold his shares 3 years ago for a sum that would make Patricia Vance's eyes bleed. But Lucas didn't flaunt it. He hated suits. He hated corporate politics. He liked mechanics. He liked building things with his hands. He moved to Oak Haven not for the status, but because the house had a killer workshop and was close to the best barbecue spot in Texas. He sat down and wrote a check for $250. Fine, he thought. If that's the cost of parking here, I'll pay it. He mailed the check. 3 days later, another letter. Violation notice, second offense. Fine, $500. Lucas frowned. He walked across the street and knocked on Patricia's door. She answered, wearing a tracksuit that looked like it had never seen a gym. I paid the fine, Lucas said. The fine is daily, Mr. Gage. Patricia smiled thinly. It is cumulative. Until the violation is remedied, you are fined every 24 hours. You currently owe us $750 more. By the end of the month, you will owe thousands. This is harassment, Lucas said, his voice dropping an octave. This is the rules, Patricia countered. You read the contract. Or perhaps you didn't. I noticed you didn't use a lawyer for your closing. You used a cash transfer? She said cash like it was a dirty word. In Patricia's world, people leveraged debt. People with liquid cash were suspicious. Drug dealers, lottery winners, not quality people. Mrs. Vance, Lucas said, leaning against her doorframe, I suggest you let this go. It's a truck. It's not hurting anyone. It is hurting me, she hissed. I have worked for 20 years to make Oak Haven the premier community in this county. I pushed out the renters. I banned the basketball hoops. I made sure the grass is cut to exactly 2.5 inches. I will not let a mechanic with a sentimental rusted bucket ruin my life's work. A mechanic, Lucas chuckled. Is that what you think I am? It's obvious what you are, Patricia sniffed. You don't work. You wear dirty clothes. You drive a wreck. You clearly inherited some money or got a settlement, and you think you can buy your way into class. You can't. Lucas stared at her. He felt a strange sensation. It wasn't anger. It was pity, mixed with a little bit of curiosity. Okay, Lucas said softly. I tried to be neighborly. Move the truck, Mr. Gage. No. 2 weeks passed. The fines reached $4,000. Lucas didn't pay them. He simply stacked the letters in a pile on his desk. He began to meet the other neighbors. There was Jim, a retired accountant 3 houses down. Jim stopped by while Lucas was working on the truck's engine. You're poking the bear, son, Jim warned, handing Lucas a cold beer. She's a nightmare. Lucas wiped grease from his hands. She's a tyrant, Jim corrected. She fined me $100 last year because my trash can was visible from the street at 6 p.m. The pickup comes at 5:30. I was at the grocery store. She walked up my driveway and took a photo. How does she stay in power? Nobody runs against her, Jim shrugged. Who has the time? She's retired, she's divorced, and her kids don't talk to her. The HOA is her kingdom. She has the bylaws memorized. She sues people, Lucas. She put a lien on the Smith family's house over a fence color. They had to move. "A lien?" Lucas asked. "Over a fence." "She plays dirty. She uses the HOA funds to pay for a shark lawyer named Gregson. They bleed you dry in court fees until you give up." Lucas took a sip of beer. Interesting. The war turned physical on a Tuesday. Lucas was inside on a conference call with his former partners, consulting on a new code patch. He heard a heavy mechanical whining sound outside. He looked out the window. A massive flatbed tow truck was backing into his driveway. A man was hooking chains onto the bumper of the '78 Ford. Patricia stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, overseeing the operation like a general. Lucas didn't put on shoes. He ran out barefoot. "Hey!" Lucas yelled. "Don't touch that truck!" The driver, a burly guy with a tattoo on his neck, looked at Patricia. "Hook it up," Patricia commanded. Section 9, Paragraph D. The HOA reserves the right to remove non-compliant vehicles at the owner's expense. Lucas sprinted to the truck. He placed his hand on the hood. "This is private property," Lucas said, his voice deadly calm. "If you tow this truck, I will file grand theft auto charges before you reach the main gate." "I have a work order," the driver grunted. "Lady says it's authorized." "The lady doesn't own this driveway." Lucas pulled out his phone. He didn't dial 911. He dialed a different number. "Patricia," Lucas said, holding the phone to his ear. "Call him off." "No," she smiled. "It's going to the impound lot. You can visit it there. Maybe they'll scrape the rust off." Lucas spoke into the phone. "Saul? Yeah, I have a situation. A trespassing tow truck. Yeah, I need a cease and desist sent to Victory Towing immediately. And tell the sheriff I have an intruder." He put the phone on speaker. "This is Saul Goodman," a voice crackled. Not the real Saul, but Lucas called him that. His name was actually Samuel Stein, one of the most vicious corporate litigators in New York. "I am representing Mr. Gage. Driver, listen to me closely. If those tires rotate 1 inch, I will sue your company, you personally, and I will have your commercial license revoked by the end of the business day. Drop the hook." The driver froze. He looked at Patricia. He looked at Lucas, who looked entirely too confident for a guy in gym shorts. "I ain't getting in the middle of this," the driver said. He unhooked the chains. "You have a contract!" Patricia shrieked. "Sue me," the driver muttered. He jumped in his cab and drove off. Patricia stood alone on the sidewalk. Her face was a mask of fury. "This isn't over," she spat. "I'm calling a special meeting. We're going to put a lien on your house. I will take your home, Mr. Gage. I will take it and sell it to someone who drives a Lexus." Lucas stepped closer to her. He smelled the fear beneath her expensive perfume. "Patricia," he said gently, "you really should have Googled me." That night, Lucas didn't sleep. He went into his office, a room that looked like the command center of a starship. 3 curved monitors, a server rack in the closet, and a pot of black coffee. He stopped being the mechanic. He became the CEO. "Okay, Patricia," he whispered, his fingers flying across the mechanical keyboard. "Let's see who you really are." He started with public records. Patricia Vance, 62 years old, divorced in 2015. Former husband was a surgeon. She got the house in the settlement. He pulled the property tax records for 405 Oak Haven Drive. Assessment, $1.2 million, taxes, paid. Then he dug deeper. He accessed the county clerk's database. He found the mortgage deeds. Patricia had refinanced the house in 2018. She took out a massive HELOC, home equity line of credit. Then she refinanced again in 2021. Cash out refinance. "You're pulling equity out," Lucas mused. "Why?" He ran a credit check. Lucas had access to tools that were legally gray, remnants of his data mining days. Patricia Vance was drowning. Credit card debt? $85,000. Neiman Marcus card, maxed out. Mercedes lease, 2 months behind. She was house poor. She had the big mansion, the status, the power over the HOA, but she was barely making the mortgage payments. She was living on the settlement money, and the well was dry. That's why you care about property values, Lucas realized. Your house is the only asset you have left. If the value drops, you're underwater. Then, Lucas looked at the HOA financials. As a member, he had a right to see them. He logged into the resident portal. The Oakhaven HOA had a reserve fund of $250,000. But when he looked at the vendor list, he noticed a pattern. Landscaping, Vance Greenery LLC. Pool maintenance, Vance Blue LLC. He ran the LLCs. They were registered to a P.O. box in a strip mall. The registered agent? Todd Vance, Patricia's son. Oh, Patricia. Lucas leaned back, a wolfish grin spreading across his face. You're embezzling. You're funneling HOA dues to your son's shell companies at inflated rates. It was perfect. He could go to the police. He could have her arrested for fraud. But that was too fast. That was too easy. Patricia had insulted his father's truck. She had tried to humiliate him. He didn't just want justice. He wanted to own her. He called Samuel Stein. Sam, Lucas said, I want to buy some debt. Whose? Patricia Vance, 405 Oakhaven Drive. Who holds the note? Looks like First Regional Bank of Texas. Call them, Lucas said. They have a non-performing loan on their books. I want to buy the mortgage. I want to be the lender. Lucas, banks don't usually sell single mortgages to individuals. I'm not an individual, Sam. Use the holding company, Titanium Ventures. Offer them 100 cents on the dollar. Offer them 110. I don't care. Just get me the paper. This is malicious, Lucas. No, Sam. It's business. She wants to talk about property rights? Fine. I want to be the ultimate property owner. For the next month, Lucas went gray rock. He stopped washing the truck in the driveway. He parked it in the garage, but he left the garage door open just enough so the bumper was visible. He ignored the fines. The stack grew to $10,000. Patricia grew bold. She thought she had broken him. At the monthly HOA meeting, held in the community center, Patricia stood at the podium. And finally, she announced to the room of 50 bored neighbors, we have the issue of the resident in 402. We have successfully levied fines. We are currently filing a lien against his property. We will foreclose if necessary to remove the blight from our community. She looked directly at Lucas, who sat in the back row wearing a baseball cap. Mr. Gage, do you have anything to say? Lucas stood up. The room went quiet. Jim gave him a sympathetic look. Just one question, Lucas said. Is the landscaping contract up for renewal soon? Patricia blinked. That is internal board business. Sit down. I just noticed, Lucas continued, his voice mild, that we pay $15,000 a month for landscaping, but the company, Vance Greenery, seems to be located in a UPS store. Strange, right? A murmur went through the room. Patricia flushed red. You are out of order. This meeting is adjourned. She slammed the gavel. As she walked out, she hissed at Lucas. I'm filing the lien tomorrow. Get ready to move. Lucas smiled. Check your mail, Patricia. Chapter 6. The Acquisition. The process took 6 weeks. First Regional Bank of Texas was happy to get the toxic asset off their books. Patricia had missed 3 mortgage payments in a row. She was in pre-foreclosure, but the bank hadn't moved yet because of the backlog. Sam Stein worked his magic. Titanium Ventures LLC purchased the mortgage note for $850,000. Lucas Gage was now Patricia Vance's bank. But he didn't stop there. He looked deeper into the HOA covenants. The Oakhaven land was built on a plot that had retained mineral and access rights to the original developer. The developer had gone bankrupt in 2008. The rights were held by a liquidation firm in Delaware. The rights included the common areas, the roads, the sidewalks, and the gatehouse. Technically, the HOA leased the roads from the rights holder. Lucas bought the rights. Cost $50,000, pocket change for him. He now owned Patricia's mortgage, and he owned the literal street she drove on. It was time to pull the trigger. Patricia Vance was having a bad day. Her Mercedes had finally been repossessed. She had to take an Uber to the nail salon, which was humiliating. She came home to find a certified letter in her mailbox. She smiled. Finally, the lien confirmation on Gage's house. She opened it. It wasn't a lien on Gage. It was a notice of default and acceleration. Dear Ms. Vance, your mortgage note has been sold to Titanium Ventures, LLC. Due to failure to make payments for 90 days, the lender is exercising its right to accelerate the loan. Total amount due immediately, $842,000. Failure to pay within 14 days will result in foreclosure proceedings. Patricia dropped the letter. Titanium Ventures, who is that? She ran inside and called the bank. I'm sorry, Ms. Vance, the teller said. We sold your account. You have to deal with the new holder. Give me their number. We only have a legal address. C.O. Samuel Stein, attorney at law. Patricia called Gregson, the HOA lawyer. Gregson, I'm being foreclosed on. Some shell company bought my debt. Stop them. Patricia, Gregson sighed, if you haven't paid your mortgage, there's nothing I can do. You have to pay the balance. I don't have $800,000. I need time. Then you better pray the new owner is lenient. 3 days later, Patricia saw a truck in her driveway. It wasn't the tow truck. It was the blue 1978 Ford F-150. Lucas was leaning against it, drinking coffee. He was parked directly behind her remaining car, a leased Audi, blocking her in. Patricia stormed out of the house. You! Move this junk! I have a crisis to deal with! Good morning, Patricia, Lucas said. Nice day to move, isn't it? Get off my property! Well, Lucas scratched his chin, that's the tricky part. You see, technically, you're trespassing. What are you talking about? I own this house. Do you? Lucas pulled a document from the truck's cab. According to this, you are in default to Titanium Ventures, LLC. Patricia froze. She looked at Lucas. She looked at the truck. She looked at the document. How do you know that? Patricia, Lucas said softly, I am Titanium Ventures. The silence that followed was absolute. The birds stopped singing. The sprinklers stopped hissing. Patricia's face went gray. Her knees buckled, and she had to grab the Audi for support. You bought my house. I bought your debt, Lucas corrected, which gives me the right to take the house. And considering you have no equity left because you spent it all on, what was it? Visual integrity? You can't do this, she whispered. This is evil. Evil? Lucas stepped closer. His voice hardened. Evil is trying to take a man's home because you don't like the color of his truck. Evil is funneling community money to your son's fake company. Evil is bullying people like Jim and the Smiths because it makes you feel powerful. I'll sue you, she cried. I'm the HOA president. Oh, about that, Lucas smiled. I also bought the underlying land rights to the Oakhaven common areas, the roads, the sidewalks, the gate. He pointed to the asphalt beneath her feet. I own the street, Patricia, and as the landlord of the street, I'm instituting a new rule. No residents with unpaid mortgage defaults are allowed to use the private roads. It degrades the financial integrity of the neighborhood. He paused for effect. So, even if you could drive that Audi, You can't drive it here. The emergency HOA meeting was the most attended event in Oak Haven history. Word had spread. The mechanic in 402 was actually a tech billionaire, and he had declared war on Patricia. The hall was packed. Patricia sat at the head table, looking shrunken. She was pale, shaking. Lucas walked in. He wasn't wearing cargo shorts today. He was wearing a suit, no tie, but the suit clearly cost more than Patricia's car. He took the microphone. "Neighbors," Lucas said, "I have a proposal." "He's a predator!" Patricia shrieked, standing up. "He's trying to steal my home." "I am foreclosing on a bad debtor," Lucas corrected. "Just like you tried to foreclose on the Smiths for a fence. Karma is a wheel, Patricia." He turned to the crowd. "I have audited the HOA financials. I have proof of embezzlement regarding the landscaping contracts. I have handed this proof to the district attorney." Gasps erupted. People turned to glare at Patricia. "Furthermore," Lucas continued, "I own the rights to the roads. I am willing to gift these rights to the HOA permanently for $1. On one condition." "What condition?" Jim shouted from the back. "The immediate dissolution of the current board, the removal of all fines related to vehicles, trash cans, and aesthetic choices, and the resignation of Patricia Vance." "Yeah!" The room erupted. It was a revolution. Jim stood up. "I move to remove Patricia as president." "Seconded!" screamed the lady from House 305. "All in favor?" Every hand went up. Patricia stood alone, stripped of her title, stripped of her home, stripped of her power. She looked at Lucas. He didn't look triumphant. He just looked tired. "Why?" she whispered. "You could have just paid the fine." "It was never about the fine, Patricia," Lucas said into the mic. "It was about the truck. You don't mess with a man's truck." 30 days later, a moving truck was parked in front of 405 Oak Haven Drive. Patricia Vance walked out carrying a single box. She looked 10 years older. She was moving to a rental condo in the city. Her credit was ruined. She was facing an investigation for the embezzlement. Lucas sat on the tailgate of his blue Ford F-150. He was drinking a coffee. He watched her go. He didn't wave. He didn't gloat. The neighborhood was different now. Jim had left his trash can out until 7 p.m. No one cared. The kid down the street was playing basketball in the driveway. A guy 3 doors down was washing his boat. It was still a nice neighborhood. It was still clean, but it wasn't a prison anymore. Jim walked over to Lucas. "So," Jim said, "you own her house now. What are you going to do with it?" "I'm going to renovate it," Lucas said. "Fix the roof, update the plumbing, and then sell it?" "No," Lucas smiled. "I'm going to rent it out." "To who?" "My cousin Eddie," Lucas grinned. "He plays the drums, and he drives a monster truck, bright neon green." Jim laughed until he choked. Lucas patted the hood of the blue Ford. The rust spots glinted in the sun like badges of honor. Dad would have loved this, Lucas thought. He turned the key. The engine roared to life, loud, unrefined, and free.